Hello, welcome back to another episode of Orange Juice News and Notes from around the world of insoles. I am your host, Owen Kenoy, and back with me, co-host and podcast producer. Very special shout out for that. My sister, Mallory Kenoy. Hey, Mal.
Ooh, I'm back.
She's back. Welcome back to the show. Always behind the scenes, but it's good to see your face. So for those who are tuning in consistently and kind of following along episode to episode, if you'll remember in our last episode, we talked about how insoles can be a great resource for recovery, whether that's after your work day or after your long training event, whatever it is to you. But using insoles as a way to give your feet a break in between activities is something we find to be very useful. But also, the reality is, and we referenced it a little bit in the episode prior, a lot of the times insoles are used to treat specific injuries, ailments, pains, aches you have. That extra support in your shoes can go a long way. So we were talking and we thought, hey, maybe it would be useful for us to break down some of the top ailments that we hear about from our customers and just highlight at a high level what they are, and maybe a few things you can do to help treat it. Quick disclaimer, we are not doctors, we are not medical professionals even. However, we do have a lot of experience talking to people with what they're wearing on their feet and how it's impacting the rest of their body and their injuries. And we also happen to have several awesome reviews referencing how our insoles specifically help these injuries or ailments. So with that said, there's kind of a general framework for really any lower body injury that we like to follow. It's super simple. It comes from our Playmakers days. I say our Playmakers days when Mallory and I used to work there. Customers would come in, they'd have problems and ask us like, hey, what do I do about this? What do I do about that? It starts with three things, and we have referenced them before on the podcast, but it's so important. The first thing for your injury to treat it is to simply stretch. That's self-explanatory, but are the muscles surrounding that sore spot super tight, or are you doing a good job stretching them, loosening them, that sort of thing? We'll get into that a little more as well. The next one is strengthen. So stretch, then strengthen. So that's going to be kind of more of like your weight routines potentially, or even just simple activities that are building muscle in those core muscle groups, again, surrounding your injury. And then finally is support, which is where orange insoles would come into play. But supporting your feet, thus the rest of your lower body, is really important as well. So we'll cover that in a little bit more detail. Of course, support can also be footwear as well. But we're going to hop into some of the injuries and ailments, again, that we hear pretty frequently.
Yeah, for legal reasons, I'll also confirm I am not a doctor or a medical professional. But our goal today is to give you some simple and actionable items that you can do to hopefully start to feel better and do more, as our slogan goes.
I feel like I need to shout out Dr. Rick Marshall, who is a medical professional, a fictional one, but do you remember Dr. Rick Marshall from, was it Land Before Time?
Oh, yeah.
So for the movie historians, Will Ferrell was Dr. Rick Marshall, a trained medical professional, but he is not a physician. And he's treating Chaka, which is like an old cave character that, you know, they go back in time to the dinosaur age, and he's a caveman, and he's treating Chaka. So shout out to Dr. Rick Marshall. We are not trained medical professionals, but hopefully you'll find some useful information here. So the first one we hear about all the time is plantar fasciitis. And what this really is it's irritation of your plantar fascia. And I know you're like, okay, duh, but what is my plantar fascia? It's the long muscle that stretches from your heel to your forefoot. And what happens is if you're overusing your plantar fascia or it's not properly supported, it's really going to become irritated. And what this amounts to is a sharp heel pain, especially when you're taking the first steps in the morning or after sitting for a long period of time. But again, it's general like sharp pain in your heel or foot. And like we mentioned before, there are a few simple things to do for plantar fasciitis or really any lower extremity injury. But in this case, a stretch that will really help you out is just simply stretching your calves. The reason being is once your calves get tight, that's going to start pulling on your plantar fascia and thus tightening your plantar fascia as well, and that can cause more irritation. So you want to make sure you stretch your calves. You can also stretch your plantar fascia or your foot just by doing like some general like foot scrunches or ankle alphabets, that sort of thing. But making sure you stretch is an important thing, as we've already covered. Strengthening, so what can we do to strengthen? One note is when your symptoms are at their worst for any of these injuries, it probably is not the best time to start strengthening. So it's okay to maybe take this step in stride and maybe incorporate it once you start to feel better, after you start doing some stretching, after you do some support with insoles or better shoes. Then start incorporating in the strengthening. We always tell you to just listen to your body, but for plantar fasciitis, strengthening is not like going to the gym and doing deadlifts and squats. It's actually just doing some towel curls. So what that means is you lay out a towel on the ground, you take your toes and you use them to scrunch up the towel and kind of roll it all the way up or as far as you can, and then you'll lay it back out and reset. Doing something like that, again, just works different muscles in your feet in a way that they're not used to and can help strengthen them. And then supporting, of course, is key. This is going to help. Like I said, overuse is a big issue with plantar fasciitis. So supporting it with proper insoles, orange insoles, or proper footwear will help reduce the strain on the plantar fascia and limit that repeated stress that you are experiencing, which ultimately led to the injury.
I feel like I hear plantar fasciitis more than any of these other injuries. Like, it's one of the most common ones that we end up treating.
And also, very few people confidently pronounce it. It's always hilarious to hear the different variations. But plantar fasciitis, or as we call it, heel pain.
Yep, a little simpler. The next one is shin splints, which is something I have definitely dealt with over the years. Especially when I remember growing up and getting into like basketball season or lacrosse
Mm-hmm.
season, where I all of a sudden was doing a lot more activity. Last year I tried running again, same thing. So what is it? It is inflammation along the shin bone, caused from usually overuse or rapid increase in activity. So like I was saying, when I was maybe going from a period of relaxing to all of a sudden moving a lot, especially I feel like once you're increasing cardio more too, if you start walking more, running more, that kind of thing, that impact definitely affects it more than just like maybe starting to weight lift more or something, from what I've noticed. But stretching feels so good when you have shin splints.
Mm-hmm.
Um, any kind of like calf stretches, especially like what I like to think of is the one where you put your toe up against the wall and kind of lean into it. And recently at a yoga, it's technically called a stretch class at my gym. They had us do that, and then they had us bend our knee, and it hits a whole new area. It really hits like some of your Achilles heel too, which we'll get into later. But it feels different. So definitely do both variations of it to hit different muscles. But yeah, anything that kind of stretches that calf can really help with the shin splint pain. Strengthening is also important. Like Owen mentioned, though, maybe not in the midst of the injury, but if you're someone like me who maybe wants to get into running again, you can start being proactive about it, and start strengthening now before you start building up that cardio again, and include it as part of your routine. Maybe it's part of your warm-up. That could be a good way to start doing it. But toe raises are a good way to strengthen the front of your lower leg. That's the one I hear the most. Oh, and I don't know if you have any other good ones along there, but
And we can make a whole separate video on a lower body regimen and strength training exercises and whatnot. But really, just starting small with like those toe raises, the ankle scrunches. A lot of what the toe scrunches. Ankle alphabets are another thing you can do to help with the mobility. A lot of the things that we've focused on are like smaller exercises to do with your feet, mostly because it, again, stems from your foundation. So we just talk about, hey, building that strong foundation in your feet is ultimately going to help your calves, which will help your shin splints, etc., and so on and so forth. So, keeping it pretty general, maybe this is a good idea to do a separate podcast, Mallory. I know we're kind of thinking of ideas on the fly, but literally do a separate podcast on like lower extremity strength training exercises, something like that.
Yeah, this is kind of
So stay
quick
tuned.
things you can do right now if you needed to. If you don't have a gym
Yes,
membership and you're maybe sitting at your desk at work, maybe you can do something. But insoles, again, also will be helpful here to help control your alignment, reduce stress on that lower leg. Again, it's that chain. Once you start at the base, it really affects everything going up, including those shin splints.
absolutely. And I know Mallory had referenced Achilles pain. That is actually the next symptom we hear a lot about. One of my friends had recently torn his Achilles, and it is a slow rehab process, as many know if you are familiar. And he has really gone out of his way to let me know, like, hey, orange insoles have been a great tool for me just to give some extra support to my feet, but also my Achilles. So he's doing like incline walking on the treadmill and all that good stuff, and obviously physical therapy. But that kind of hits the support category where trying some insoles in your shoes really could be something that makes a difference, whether it's your training shoes or even just the general shoes that you wear every day, like to the store or to work. Again, just taking stress off of your plantar fascia or your arches, and thus your Achilles. It is the goal here. So with that said, Achilles pain, really it's mostly just like stiffness or soreness in the Achilles. A lot of people will have arthritis as well, but it often gets worse after the activity, again, with more of that repetitive use. So something that can help is, of course, we've already mentioned stretching your calves, but your calves are right there next to your Achilles. So that's going to be a big one. Stretch your calves, and then some strengthening you can do when the time is right. Would be like some controlled heel drops. So think about like putting your like forefoot on a stair or a step, and then like slowly lowering your heel. It's going to help stretch out that Achilles, and then also bringing it back to the center weight is going to be a good exercise for it as well. So something like that is great. And another thing that a lot of people don't necessarily think about is getting like higher drop shoes, is what they call them. So higher drop shoes are ones that your heel sits above your toe, and what that's going to do is put literally less strain on your Achilles because it's going to now be shortened, and your heel's not going to have to sit down as far in the shoe. So look for like a higher drop shoe, or maybe on the flip side, avoid low drop shoes or no drop shoes where your heel is even with your toe, because now your Achilles is going to have more strain on it than maybe it would with a different shoe choice.
All right, next up is knee pain. Knee pain is an interesting one because I do think a lot of different things can cause it. I know I've been having some knee pain, and it's from a mix of like weak hips and IT band strain and XYZ. It can also be from poor tracking or overuse. And what it is pain around or behind the kneecap, as it sounds. But we're going to focus on a good way to alleviate knee pain. And again, it depends on what's causing it. But for most people, stretching the quad and hip flexors will help a lot. One of my favorite stretches, I teach a fitness class, we always do this one. You bring your knee up to 90 degrees, so on one knee, other knee up to 90, and then you basically tuck your tailbone under. I tell everyone to pretend you're becoming a shrimp. So you really tuck everything under, you squeeze the glute of your knee, of the leg that is down. Sorry, I have something in my throat. And then you can also push away, interlace your hands, push away from that front knee, tuck your chin to your chest, really embrace the shrimp. And If you have never stretched your hip flexors before, you will feel crazy. I've heard it described as like clearing away the cobwebs. It just feels like it feels really good though if you've never done it. And then, all those quad stretches of, grabbing your foot, like bending your knee, grabbing your foot, and kicking into your hand. That part is important if you want to feel the stretch. Those are a couple good ones. But it's also good to strengthen glute bridges and clamshells. I actually heard that from the PT when when I had my knee pain. That's exactly what they told me to do. Again, a lot of that, it's the chain. A lot of it can come from weak hips, weak glutes, and then it goes down your leg and affects your knee. So I know it might sound interesting to have to do glute bridges or clamshells, but it definitely, that straight from the PT. And then again, support, that alignment, uh, like I keep saying, from the ground up. It's hard because it's the same thing for all of it, but it's so true. Everything is connected. So if one thing starts getting out of alignment, it's gonna cause pain, maybe somewhere way down the chain, and you don't know how to fix it. So in this case with knee pain, a lot of that does come from your hips and your glutes, and the more alignment and support you can have there, the better.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we're leading, and we'll recap at the end, and we just have a couple of more, but it really is all connected, and it's all a chain. So if it seems somewhat repetitive, it is, and maybe it's just an aha moment where it's like, hey, everything's connected. Doing some simple stretches and supporting from the ground up will really go a long way. Truly, I mean, that's our goal, is to kind of educate and get you guys, our audience, just some more resources and like talking points on, hey, this is what's actually going on with your body. So with that said, going right up the chain here is hip pain as well. So we hear a lot about hip pain. Marsha, who obviously is on the podcast quite a bit, our co-founder, she deals a lot with hip pain, and she swears that having our insoles really helps. And she kind of notices when she doesn't have them in and she's doing certain activities and whatnot, just that her hips get out of alignment very quickly, and she's even had to have them reset and whatnot. She would frequently go to like physical therapy, or Playmakers even had like an injury clinic where they'd be able to help kind of reset your hips and whatnot. So what it is discomfort on the outside or the front of the hip. Often it is related to poor mechanics or some sort of muscle imbalance along the chain. I think we've decided that we'll do a episode talking about, different strengthening exercises you can do to make sure you're addressing, each part of the chain, or as much of the chain as possible. So stay tuned on that. But some stretches you can do as well. Doing a hip flexor stretch is really important. Like Mallory already covered that prior exercise. I just remember her referencing the shrimp. I'll call it the shrimp stretch. Or even just like a simple figure four stretch. Sit down on the ground, bring 1 foot into your knee, and then lean forward and do the stretch. I think everyone's seen that or done it in some form or fashion, even if it was way back in your childhood. And then if you do want to actually help with the hip pain as well, or do some strengthening exercises and you feel up to it, another simple one we haven't talked about yet is using some resistance bands and just doing like some lateral walking or shuffling, and that motion will help strengthen your hips as well. And then obviously the final part of the hip pain as well is making sure you support it. So stretch, strength, and support. And that would be with proper footwear. So one thing we haven't plugged yet is we have our insole quiz. So if you are wondering, hey, which insoles are best for my shoes, maybe start there, go to our website, find the insole quiz tab at the top, and then you're going to be able to sort out, hey, these are the right insoles for my shoes, or maybe you do go to the store and get fitted for new shoes because you need more support and whatnot. So all of those are kind of core, I guess, remedies to that hip pain, but that's one where it really is more of a holistic approach where you're going to have to make sure your body's aligned, especially when you're having those issues with your hips.
The last one we're gonna cover is ball of foot pain, or what I'm gonna confidently mispronounce, metatarsalgia.
You nailed it.
It is a pain or burning sensation in the ball of the foot, often from pressure and overloading the forefoot.
And Mallory, this is something, just to jump in. This is something that I get a lot, and I hear a lot from ladies as well. The reason I get it is because I have such a wide foot that I can pretty confidently say that almost no shoe is going to have like the full, I guess, base like underneath my foot. My forefoot is so wide that it's going to be pinched, and just that like pinching does cause extra pressure on my forefoot, and thus I absolutely get this ball of foot pain. And it's the same thing for women. I mean, they might have wide feet and it'd be the same idea, but a lot of them will wear dress shoes, high heels, that sort of thing that are very pointed, and then that's also another reason why they're experiencing it as well. So that's kind of a core spot of where it can come from, and it can be very simple, obviously, as just wearing proper footwear.
Yeah, definitely. I have very flat feet and wide feet. However, even when I wear heels on special occasions, I'm pretty sure anyone who's ever worn heels knows this feeling. It just is gonna happen. Like you said, from improper footwear. um, but maybe once you kick off your heels, a lot of people also know that they go right for the toe extension. Your feet just go because that's what feels good. And that's what we're gonna recommend you do anyway. So toe extension stretches. You can even do like trying to. I'm just gonna demo with my hand, like you're trying to grab something. That's gonna feel really good. To start again, just spreading those toes. Um, Also, toe spreading is good for strengthening. Toe presses can work controlled. Do not just dump all your weight on your feet. That's going to hurt. I know some people also try to like peel their toes up. That can work to start strengthening. Um, but I feel like the biggest thing is proper footwear. And then also orange insoles, which does have the metatarsal pad, which helps evenly redistribute pressure away from the forefoot. Spread those toes out evenly. What else does it have, Owen?
No, I mean that's the key feature. So not many insoles, very few have that metatarsal pad, and it's such a key feature, especially as we described for the ball of foot pain, where it does just sit behind your metatarsal heads, and it really is just an extra support system for your forefoot. So that's something that when we're at like podiatry conferences and whatnot, doctors will point out, and they're like, hey, I noticed that each of your insoles has a metatarsal pad. That's great because, again, it's just extra support for your forefoot. So that's definitely something that's unique and worth pointing out, especially for this injury. But as you'll notice, there's definitely a pattern here where a lot of these injuries come from repetitive stress or poor alignment or improperly fitted footwear. So just keeping those things in mind and staying on the topic of support, Orange Insoles bestseller, the full length insole, has a deep heel cup as well. This is especially supportive. It helps control the motion in your heel and allows your body to absorb the impact better with each step. So not a lot of insoles have that deep heel cup. If you are experiencing one of these specific injuries or ailments, that could be the difference in support that your body needs to help give your muscles a break and ultimately recover. So keeping that in mind is super important. And then, as we've obviously covered pretty thoroughly, stretching is super important. Stretch your calves, stretch your lower body as much as possible, stretch your feet, and then strengthening. So not just neglecting these areas that, or these muscle groups that are strained, and making sure that once they are recovered, you're doing what you can to properly strengthen them so that the same injuries don't happen again. So hopefully that helps give everyone an idea of how to treat your lower extremity injury. Maybe you heard something you've been experiencing in here as well, and you can take a few tips. But Mallory, is there anything you would like to leave our audience with before we send them off with these wonderful tips?
Like everything too that we say, just start small. You don't have to do all of these things all at once and incorporate all of it. Just pick maybe one, and like one area that you're struggling with the most, and just start there. And maybe start with 5 to 10 minutes of strengthening and stretching a day. It doesn't have to be crazy.
So well said. Yeah, do what you can. A little bit is better than none. And then also, of course, just to wrap up the episode, if you are really experiencing pain, definitely seek medical help. Get out there and be seen, and make a point to start recovering and get better. And I know your body will thank you later. So with that said, thanks so much for listening to another episode of Orange Juice, and we'll catch you next time.